Hey everybody, this is Dave Cooper, and we are in Austin, Texas with the Housing Innovation Alliance. And there's really no explanation on who's standing next to me. Everybody probably knows this guy, Matt Reisinger. So we're at Matt Reisinger's personal home.
This is it.
I love it. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. So if you're just joining us, we have been in Austin, Texas for the last 2 days. Matt, we've been to some really cool places.
Sounds like you have been.
Whisper Valley, we're a big developed community all about net zero.
Very cool.
Zero home, attainable homes is the word they use. They're always, you leave your doors open and you leave the air on, it's not zero.
Yeah, no, not as much.
And we've been to Icon, we've been to so many places, 3D printing, and now we're here. And this is kind of a highlight.
I'm glad you would stop. This is just my my personal house. Nothing super fancy, nor very big. It's a 2,700 square foot, 4-bedroom house. Nothing super exciting.
And it's in a beautiful neighborhood. There's kids everywhere. The atmosphere is really nice. Listen, if you guys are just joining us, we are live on location, and we're going to go sit down in a little bit and take some questions. But if you could, hit that like and share button right now. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're not a subscriber to Matt's channel, please subscribe to Matt's channel as well. So, Matt, why don't you walk us through what's going on here? Because this is a passive house.
We will hopefully get rated passive house. One of the things I like about that standard is it's not just a checklist. I think a lot of builders have feelings about some of the green builder programs over the years. It was like, oh, if you had a bike rack, you get 10 points, and you need 600 points to get gold. But with passive house, it's all about here's the benchmark, and you have to prove that you're meeting the benchmark. So I may say I'm going to be a passive house, but until I've shown my blower door scores, I've shown all of the basically all the paperwork that shows exactly what I've actually put in the house and third-party verified, it's not a passive house. So that's really what I like about it. But what we've got going on here, Dave, is this is a 1970s neighborhood. And believe it or not, this is my original slab on this house. I actually live on the same street currently. And so in this house, I originally thought I was going to do a remodel, and I was going to do a chainsaw retrofit, perfect wall style. And as I got into it, I realized what am I doing? This is terrible. I need to build a new house. So we started with an old foundation, and we framed up from there. But what's really fun on this project is as I build it with Joe Stiebrick's perfect wall style, which I've kind of changed the wording. I like the term monopoly framing, which means that anything you see that's attached to the house, for instance, this garage. Let's walk over this way. This garage, we didn't frame the garage. And put the exterior insulation on. So for instance, my garage is big. And you can see my wall insulation, my exterior 2-inch rigid foil-based foam there, is actually behind that ledger board. So we framed all the second floor. We use zip system sheathing, and I've got it all air sealed at the zip. That's my air barrier in the house. And then we added the insulation, and then we added that ledger board, and you can see these long spax structural screws that I verified with the engineer. Those are lagged all the way back into a big beam there. So now this garage roof has no thermal bridging. There's no. If you were to take an IR camera at some point when my house is heated cooled, you'd be able to see that there's no bridging there. And that's a big tenet of passive houses, making sure that you cut off all the bridging. Most houses that are 2x4 framing like this, you're gonna put R13 and R15 bats in the wall, but because you've got all those studs and headers and double top plates, you're really less than half that when it comes to the effective R value. So you think you're building an R15 wall, but in reality, you're really not. And that's why you go in a house with an infrared camera, you can see every stud. But in this house, I've got continuous insulation everywhere on the outside and on the roof. And this is kind of cool too. I did it on this roof here because I'm gonna heat and cool my garage. But let's actually go over to this roof where you can see it. So for instance, my master roof and this roof, see there's actually 2 inches or 2 layers of 2-inch rigid foam on top of my roof. And my walls were framed so that this wall right here goes all the way up, and my zip wall sheathing actually touches my zip roof sheathing. So all the overhangs you see here are bolted on after the fact. None of them run into the house. They're all on top of that.
And that's how you're keeping that continuous air barrier and wrapping the house and breaking the thermal bridge all the way down.
Exactly right.
And you're also tying it. A lot of people don't do this. Most builders don't today. you tie it all the way to the foundations as well.
Right, that's right. Underneath all my bottom plates on the house, underneath that 2x4 bottom plate, I used a detail from a guy named Steve Basic, where we used the sound block. And there's several different options on this. Basically, this is an acoustic sealant. And if you've ever used acoustic sealant, the way that it's effective on noise is it never hardens. And so what we do is we run a bead on the foundation, then we use traditional sill sealer on top of the foundation. Then we put another bead of this acoustic sealant and then the 2x4 bottom plate. So that now that bottom plate is sandwiched with sill sealer and 2 layers of this, so that I won't get air under there.
Right.
And it basically is permanently flexible. It never cures. It's always gummy and gooey.
Right.
30, 50 years later.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we've got a good air seal under there.
Right. Well, I know with like Superior Walls, they use something similar to do the joints on their walls so you get that expansion and contraction. I'm assuming it's kind of the same concept. Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's interesting. I mean, is that two plate?
What you're seeing there is I really has nothing to do with building science and all about architecture.
Yeah.
I had 2 porch columns,
Right.
and the engineer designed my triple LVL beam that's carrying this load for the roof. And I said to the framer, no, now that I see those columns, he had them temporary, just 2x4 cam. No, I really don't like those. I can't figure out where I'd put my rocker on the porch and not have an obstruction. So I said, let's eliminate those. And so we took them out, and within a week, I saw my beam smiling at me. You know what I'm talking about? The beam was sagging down in the center. And I thought that triple LVL would be strong enough, but in fact, no, the engineer designed it with columns for a reason. So I had to call him back and go, well, actually, Whit, I know that I gave you a plan that had columns, but I decided to eliminate them. What could we do? So that's kind of a version of a flitch pellet, a flitch beam or a flitch plate. But in this case, we used tube steel and we added it to the outside. And I've got a mixture of both brick on the front of the house and hardy plank. I'll be able to cover that up with my hardy software, basically.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's great. I think another thing that's interesting to talk about, what a lot of people don't know, is you have these loopers on the front, right? Why don't you explain how important these are to have this air brake in your system for your exterior wall?
Yeah, great question, Dave. So I've got brick going here, and the brick is going to die at the edge of the beam. But then where the brick stops, I've got James Hardy on most of my house. And here in this area where I've got horizontal James Hardy, we've added this 1x4, just a standard pine 1x4. I lagged them in with a Spax power lag back to the studs. So you'll notice these are on 16-inch on centers. But now when I install that hardy plank on here, there's an air gap behind the hardy, and it's called a rain screen. Right? And the idea is when this gets wet, and in this case, it's not going to get very wet because I'm on a porch, but on the rest of the house, when the wind blows and gets it wet, I'm not worried about caulking failing. I'm not worried about water getting back there, because any water that gets back there is going to hit this ventilated rain screen plane, which means that it's pressure equalized between the front and the back. There's nothing that's going to want to force that water past my insulation or up against my zip sheeting back there. It'll fall out. And then the key then is making sure that I have airflow at the bottom and airflow at the top. So you'll see later when I get there, I'll have a gap on my top and a gap on my bottom. It's just look like a black line. It'll have a bug screen on it, and it'll make sure that I've got airflow, but not a path for bugs to get in.
Right, and it eliminates the opportunity for mold and mildew and water buildup behind the wall, which is helping achieve the healthy home zero energy as well.
Exactly.
I love it. So there's some other things I find very interesting in your house, and we're going to walk inside here and then we'll sit down and start taking questions and talking to the audience. But you're not using traditional 2x4s that somebody would think.
Yeah.
So why don't you help us through that a little bit?
Yeah, let's walk in and we talk about that. So Dave, I've framed a lot of houses with and usually I did it for clients that had not a desire for engineered lumber, but usually an architect who was designing very unforgiving houses. Things like 2-story walls with raking light and big windows. And for me as a builder, that's a red flag. Oh my gosh, that has to be perfectly straight, or my clients who are paying me to be their expert are going to walk in there and see the most minute drywall imperfections. And then 2 years or 3 years ago, I had a client say, hey man, I want to build my house out of these LVL studs. they're basically twice as strong. And he was trying to build a house that would be able to withstand a Category 3 hurricane, even though he lives in Austin. He's an engineer. He had the money. We kind of figured out how much more expensive they were, and so we said, "Yeah, let's do it." It was my first time doing it. I didn't have a lot of experience, and when we got all done, we realized, man, that house is super straight. I mean, there's not a drywall imperfection in the whole house. And so when it came time to do my house, I will be honest, I did get.
I mean, this is pretty impressive stuff.
So this is an LVL, and every builder out there has used LVLs for beams or headers or something before, and they know when they get an LVL for the lumberyard, it's perfectly straight. There's no cull. They're super strong, and so Boise Cascade and several others now have their version of 2x4, 2x6 framing that's all LVL. And I went with 2x4s, Dave, because this originally was slated as a remodel. In fact, I permitted it as a remodel,
right.
But then later we came back and revised the permit and said, well, we're gonna build new with the old slab. So all my dimensions, everything was already laid out for 2x4s, which was here originally. I kept it. Plus, I've got so much exterior insulation. I've already got my code insulation outside. If I wanted to, I could put nothing in the cavity here in this house, and I would still meet code, and I would still be better than a code house because I wouldn't have any thermal bridging.
Yeah, right.
But I'm going passive, so I need that higher level of insulation. So I'll be filling these bays with rock wool.
Perfect. So what is, before we sit down here, what is the most exciting part of this build for you? Like, what are you finding? Because you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah,
is there one part of this that you think is better than another? Like,
I mean, for me, Dave, the joy of doing it for my own family for the first time. I've been building for 25 years now and have never done a new build for my family. I've done several remodels, which is what I live in now, a remodel of a 70s house. I always have to compromise in areas. Like in my house, when I bought it 15 years ago, it had a 2-year-old furnace. And it was the builder grade furnace, and it was not great, but it just didn't make any financial sense to replace it. Here, 15 years later, it's still going strong. It was a bottom of the line model. It's noisy. It doesn't have great filtration, but it made no sense to change it when I was remodeling. And now that I've got 4 kids, you know, this wasn't a weekend project that I wanted to do to rip out my HVAC system. So over here, 15 years later, I have the money, I have the bandwidth. I've done just the ultimate HVAC system at this house, and maybe later we can walk up and show a little bit.
Yeah, sure, for sure. All right, perfect. So listen, everybody, if you're just joining us, please hit that like and share button right now. We are with Matt Reisinger, Reisinger Builds and the Build Show. Yep. I know it. I love it. We watch it. You know, and if you want to learn more about this house, I mean, there's a lot of videos that you have done already talking about the build, talking about the mistakes you've made. And I think that's really important for everybody to see.
There's a playlist on YouTube on my channel called the Real Rebuild Playlist. That's all my videos that I've shot here.
Yeah, so if you want to watch that, then check it out. All right, so let's go over here. We'll sit down and we'll hop to it here. We're going to switch screens. And
She loves stuff, man. This is cool.
The red button is
I'm nerding out on all the technology you've got going on here.
I'm here. I think we got to get unmiked. We got to get unmiked. So let's take that one down. There we go.
Can you hear us again?
Let's do that. All right. All right. If you're out there, Betsy, if you could just turn that down. If we're out there and you can hear us, please just let us know in the comments so you can hear us loud and clear. We're trying different things. I know I already said this, but I think we were on mute. Maybe they heard me on the other camera, but Andrew Seeley from G-Pod's joining us.
What's up, Andrew?
We got Steve Basic, always good. It's so much fun, you know, watching him redline his plans. It's always a learning experience with Steve, right?
I used the local architect because we had a lot of codes and regulations to deal with here. But Steve did all the building science details with me, and beyond that, has been a friend in building science, coach and mentor and confidant for several years now. if you're not following Steve, you should be following Steve on his Instagram and on buildshownetwork.com.
Yeah, and he's just entertaining, you know, and he explains it in such a simple way.
Super
so I love
smart
it.
Guy.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. So we got Adam White joining us. What's happening, Adam? George Ryman from Phoenix is joining us.
What's up, George?
Love it. All right. So we have Natalie Granetti. Hey, from the Housing Innovation Alliance. Hi, Matt.
Hey.
Thanks for taking us on a tour of your home. How has your industry experience influenced the design performance decisions you're making in your own home? And where do you find yourself naturally spending more time plus energy and money as it relates to design? That's a great question.
You can see one of those areas if I can point to. See this metal awning right here, Natalie, that's outside? This is an awning that's over this giant opening right behind me. I've got a lift and slide door coming for this. But there's one area that has really affected me. You know, as a builder, water is my #1 enemy. Yeah. And over the years, I've spent more warranty money, more headache and heartache with water issues with clients. You have to be an expert in water. So when I designed this house, I said, look, I want a 2-foot overhang everywhere. I'm going to put gutters everywhere. And where I've got 1-story portions of the house, like this area right here, but have a 2nd story above, that means this door is pretty far exposed. I may have a 2-foot overhang, but it's 2 stories in the air. You know, it's 18 feet up there, which means that this door is going to get pounded when it rains. Right. So now I've got a 4-foot metal awning to protect this door. I wanted to make sure I had good light though, so I've got some skylights back here in my family room. And oh, by the way, I hate the loss from skylights. So this is my first time using triple glazed skylights. I've got some Lamelux that I ordered through 475 Supply, and they should be here in about 3 weeks or so.
Perfect, perfect. So, and we're going to walk around a little bit more before we leave.
Yeah,
so if we have a few minutes, so maybe we can show some of those things.
Yeah.
All right.
Good question, though, Natalie. Thank you for asking.
Andrew Holmes, I love the Build Show.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it, brother.
Love it, man. Good, love it, love it. All right, we got Buzz Holitzer. How are you, buddy? Let's build. All right, so we have an unknown coiler. Hey, Matt Reisinger, big fan of your work and channel. You want to see some beautiful homes? Come to Petoskey, Michigan, very far north with some high-end homes and construction.
I don't know where that is. Michigan's beautiful, though. I'd love to get there someday.
Yeah, for sure.
When I was a kid growing up in Pennsylvania, my church would bus us all the way to Michigan, and we rented a Boy Scout camp about an hour out of Grand Rapids. Yeah. And I haven't been there since probably, I don't know, 91 or 89, 90. But man, I remember Michigan being absolutely gorgeous in the summer. That's the last time I've been to Michigan, though. So it's been close to 30 years.
Yeah, I haven't been up to Michigan in a long time either, but I know it's beautiful up there.
Someday we'll make it.
Yeah. In the winter. You got to go in the winter. You need some winter weather. It's too hot here.
Summer. That sounds great.
It's too hot here. All right. So this carried on, I think, from his previous comment. There's an old district with 150-year-old houses in perfect condition, surrounding areas including Harbor Springs, Charlevoix, I think is how you say it, even Boy Bay City. Well, thank you so much for commenting. Love it. So anybody watching, sounds like a place to go. And the comments are flying in. Hello. All right. So we got Paige Ellison Murphy. Hi, Matt and Dave. Excited to join you guys today. Matt, due to the pandemic, have you had to alter your design and construction plans in any way? If so, how and why?
Yeah, it's a good question, Paige. I mean, I think that clients that were already in process certainly have rethought some of their plans. And frankly, it's led to a lot of builders getting change orders saying, you know what, I want to do that pool after all. I know that we're going to spend a lot of time in this house, and maybe we'll end up having to spend more time than I even thought after having to live through it. Or I want a homeschool room, or I want 2 home offices. It actually has changed my design a little bit because my wife said, look, she's wanted for a long time an office off the kitchen, which is right over there. But she wants to make sure that I've got a home office space too. If for no other reason than I tend to be messy and my bills stack up in one corner of the kitchen countertop. This is probably more personal information than you want to know. But she wants me to have a closed office space. So you probably can't see it, but this set of staircases right here, you know I love my hidden doors where you're seeing that Hardy stacked up right back here. Here it is, if I can point and see where I'm pointing on camera. Underneath that staircase is going to be my pocket office. I'm going to have 2 hidden doors. We'll use some Sugatsuni hardware. I'm going to clad it with some Windsor One wood, so it'll be all wood wall, and you'll click a button and it'll pop out and reveal my office under there, which would be awesome. I'm super excited for that.
Your own personal space.
My own space in my own house. I love it.
I don't have that
now. I've got six humans plus a furry friend at our 2,200 square foot house. So this 2,700 square foot house is going to feel like a palace.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm excited.
It is going to, listen, it looks like a palace. From the outside, it's beautiful. All the angles, all the roof lines you have on this house. It's a beautiful, beautiful home.
Kit Johnson did a great job.
Everybody's telling us they can hear us loud and clear. Hey, Jenny Millman, all good, can hear you guys. Thanks, Jenny. Glad you tuned in today. We got our mics all worked out. So, all right. So let's hop into this a little bit more. I have some things loaded up in here, Matt, that I want to talk about, and I think that this is a very pertinent question. Where is the housing industry going in your mind right now?
Man, I think we're on a good trajectory right now, Dave. I feel like builders and clients that are hiring builders or hiring architects are willing to spend a little more on well-built construction. Healthier houses that use less energy, houses that have no moisture issues, houses that have better products that are going to be more durable and lasting. Those things seem to be talked about a lot more than, hey, I need to sell this. I might need to sell this in 3 years if I get transferred to Chicago.
Right.
So I need to make sure we don't overspend on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
The question is more like, no, I need to make sure I've got at least a MERV 13, but I'd prefer a MERV 15 on my HVAC system. So how do we make sure that I get a really healthy HVAC system that's going to do really good filtration and really good distribution? And how do I make sure in my really tight house that I have a really good fresh air system?
Right.
Those are the kinds of questions that are coming up more and more organically from both builders and from the clients that are hiring those builders.
Yeah.
So I feel like, if anything, the pandemic has probably helped us as a community of builders and architects that care about well-built houses. Because I feel like the general public all of a sudden has some language and some lingo and some basis of concern that they didn't have necessarily 6 months ago. Here's a random story for you. My wife is the president of the school board. We go to a private school, and probably about April or May, as we were thinking about going back to school in the fall potentially, she got several inquiries almost in the same day. Hey, do you know what the MERV rating on the school's HVAC system filtration is? And she was like, what? How, Matt, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And we came to find out that Brian Williams, or whoever was on NBC Nightly News, Lester Holt on NBC Nightly News, just ran a story the day before on filtration. And they had an expert talking about how you should have at least MERV 13, and that schools are going to be thinking about this. And boom, like her email lit up the next day.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so I actually did some consulting for the school and walked through it. And it was crazy because, my school uses, chillers and these massive units, nothing like the filters you'd have in a house. The filter boxes were like as big as from here to the end of the room.
Right.
So it's a whole different deal for them to upgrade filtration. But I love the fact that Americans all of a sudden have a renewed interest in healthy indoor air quality and building and spending the money it takes to build a well-built house, not just thinking about first cost.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, your wife had the perfect person to ask, wasn't that serendipity or whatever? Too. Yeah, she is a physician, right? And she has her channel as well, which I think is great. So you've been in this industry a long time. How is the industry, as you've seen it, now it's transforming, kind of transformed your thought process, moving into the future and what you're looking forward to in the future when it comes to building?
I've seen a renewed emphasis, Dave, on collaboration and on building houses to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And that really gets me excited. When I was interested in building a passive house, and frankly, I didn't set out to build a passive house. I kind of came there circuitously, even though I have known about passive house and had been have toured several times. It took a village to get to the point that I'm at. Steve Basic, who was on earlier, I don't know if he's still watching, he and I spent a bunch of time talking about it. I reached out to some local guys here in Austin too. Like we have a Austin Passive House Alliance, which I honestly hadn't been super active in. Eric Griffith, who's the president, spent a bunch of time with me. Trey Farmer, who's on that commission, another architect who built his house to Passive House standards. Those are the kind of people that I tapped into and said, talk to me about this, 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 and this. And that's the kind of collaboration that happens on any job. There is no one master architect or master builder. It takes great tradespeople. It takes a great builder to be the symphony conductor. It takes a great set of plans with a good building science focus. And usually it takes a couple of really good consultants. Besides just your structural engineer, you need a good MEP engineer who can help design that really healthy HVAC system, design a really good fresh air system. So by bringing all those people to the table, it ends up a project that's much, much better and frankly is more fun to build.
Yeah, for sure it is. And, you know, so I agree. I think that the future and where things are heading is more towards healthy homes, passive homes, you know, the energy efficiency side of this. Where do you see younger people getting back into this trade? You know, in general, just any of the trades, whether it's a carpenter, a framer, electrician, plumber. What are you seeing out there, and how do we help that along?
Yeah, it's a hard question, Dave. I wish I had some easy answers on that. I am encouraged to say that, and maybe even this year will Uber encourage this, but I think we've seen even in the last 2 or 3 years a renewed focus on, you know, maybe I don't need a 4-year degree only to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car and you know, have a really low-paying and not very exciting job. Why don't I go to a trade school? Why don't I do an apprenticeship? There's a lot of options these days for a high school boy or girl coming out of, you know, at 18, that they could find a position as a plumber's assistant, as an electrical assistant. A lot of these trades pay really well as you've gotten a couple of years behind your belt. You could be a 24-year-old making $85,000 a year as a plumber or an electrician in just about any town in America. We are hurting for those trades. And anecdotally, I'm seeing a fair amount of younger people on the job these days. And that's really exciting to me. I'm in Texas. We've got a fairly big immigrant population still in Texas. When I was visiting the Northeast, really, there's immigrant populations everywhere. In fact, my grandparents were immigrants. But it's really interesting to see how some of the immigrant populations tend to go towards a particular trade. My grandparents were Romanian immigrants, and I was talking to a Romanian builder outside of Chicago recently who was talking to me about how his roofer, his plumber, and I forget what other trade is like nothing but Romanian immigrant families that are in that trade and are now 2nd and 3rd generation tradesmen. Yeah, I love that about America. But not all of us, like my dad was in the steel industry. I never knew any builders except watching This Old House. So I kind of got in the industry circuitously. I got a college degree in engineering and thought I was going to work for Toyota or another car builder. But I ended up working for a national builder, and I love it. The sense of accomplishment is like no other business. But I had to go through and pay for 4 years of college. I probably could have easily gotten into this job without that. And I would have been 4 years ahead. So I'm 47. I could be where I am at 43 or 42 had I not done that.
Yeah, sure. What are your thoughts out there in the audience on this? You know, with college, with the trades, and you know, kind of what's required these days? Because, like you said, is college required to work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car? You know, I think there's so much to be learned from all these different aspects, and I think that all of this stuff that's happening in the world today is really making us take a hard look at a lot of things, and that's pretty great. All right, let's take a look. I see some more red coming up over there.
Red is a YouTube comment.
No, well, no. Red is look at your comments.
Oh, gotcha.
Look at your comments. All right, here we go. So Natalie said, hey, very interesting. Thank you. All right. Oh, Steve, my gosh, you wrote a book. Hey, Dave, I think it's extremely valuable to note to many people look at some projects and ask things like how much per square foot, etc. But hey, typically miss the boat. They should be reading in between the lines for all the things that can be introduced into the designs and projects. When you review projects like this, it is about the concepts and the approaches, not necessarily the details, as those can change regionally, and financially. Matt does an exceptional job of showing the industry. You know, so it's true. And so everybody knows why I read that out is because it doesn't translate to all the platforms. So there are some platforms that when I put that up there, they may not be able to see it.
Oh,
so we want everybody to be engaged. And Steve, you make a really good point, right? Because where we're at, it's a 2x6 wall. Mm-hmm. You know, and we're seeing a 2x4 wall out here. Mm-hmm. Now, is that a code to build 2x4 out in Texas?
No, you can build 2x6 here, and it is often done. But because our insulation requirements are lower, I'm in climate zone 2 here.
Right.
You can get away with a 2x4 wall, and typically we don't have the structural requirement to go to a 2x6 either.
Right. Right.
So you see more 2x6 construction these days, but all the production builders in Texas build a 2x4 because it's less costly.
Yeah, sure. Sure. All right. Perfect. Hey, Steve, thanks for that comment. But you're right. You know, housing really changes every 50 miles when you think about it.
It's crazy,
as you're driving around.
Very, very regional.
It is very regional.
Wild.
All right. So Jim Gill, thanks for showing the bones of your home. This is often what you want to last, but normally never see. This is very helpful.
Awesome,
hey,
Jim.
Thank you so much. Oh, look who we have. We got Rise in the house. Jenny Kelleher. How are you, Jenny? Thanks for joining us. Build with Rise. Love you guys. The HI Housing Innovation Alliance hosted a really cool coffee talk about healthy homes. Todd Usher of Addison Homes talked about incorporating warranties on homes that more closely resemble the vehicle market. For example, they proposed to a client a certified pre-owned Addison home with a guarantee that the home's equipment was performing as well as when the house was first built. Thoughts on this idea and trend?
Wow, that's cool. How's it going, Jenny? Good to hear from you again.
You got that?
I saw her at IBS this year.
Yeah.
First off, huge fan of Todd and his work. I've heard him speak many times. Super smart builder, building a really good house. And is he in Charlotte or North Carolina? South Carolina?
South Carolina. Yeah.
South Carolina. I hadn't heard of that before. I think that's really interesting. It is hard though for builders to stay involved actively on maintenance. I will attest to. Just as a side note, we have a maintenance and concierge division of my company, and it's really hard on small projects to make it worthwhile to have a full-time person. Right. Clients push back on the kind of fees that you need to charge to make it worthwhile, but yet maintaining your equipment, servicing things is super important. So it's probably worthy of a whole nother build show to talk about that.
Yeah.
Dave, and maybe we can do that in the future, but I don't have any good answers, to be honest. And honestly, sometimes it's harder to get paid on an $8,000 bill than it is an $80,000 bill. And I don't know why that is, but that's been my experience, is that I get more pushback on the really small dinky bills as a builder than I do on a draw request for $200,000.
Funny that,
it's
right?
Weird.
It is weird. It is weird.
It makes no sense.
All right, Jennifer Crocus Cooper. All right, Stone Pile. This is a great thing. I want to tell you about this. Stone Pile Construction College is a great solution for the next generation of leaders in home building and new construction, including a master's program in prefabrication and modular construction. So, I mean, this is great. Stone Pile Construction College just launched, and they really are just in their first semester. And I'll send it to you. You can have that too.
I'm gonna take a picture of that.
Yeah,
so I can remember that.
Yeah, so they have a great program, and it's a college all around offsite construction and teaching the next generation, you know, how to do it better. So
fantastic.
Just launched. So we'll be having a lot more of that on our show as well. So listen, if you guys are just joining us, I am sitting here with Matt Reisinger. We are in Austin, Texas with the Housing Innovation Alliance. I am Dave Cooper, davecooper.live, and we are traveling around talking to the most innovative people that are out there doing great things, driving the industry forward. Matt Reisinger is obviously one of them. That's for sure.
Compliment, man. I appreciate that.
And it's been a lot of fun. Like I said earlier, if you're just joining, we were at, Icon 3D printed homes earlier today. We were in a tiny home community earlier today. And we were at Whisper Valley.
It's cool.
Which is really cool. I mean, there's so much happening in Austin. Austin's a cool place.
It's a cool town. Dave, one thing that I didn't know when I moved here 15 years ago is how design oriented this town is. There are people that follow certain architects that they love their work. Yeah. And their particular houses that they've designed resell at a higher rate. And you get more money on a house designed by that particular architect, whether it's Alter Studio or David Weber or Hugh Randolph. They command a premium for those houses because they're really well designed. And coincidentally, normally those architects are building with good builders. And I'd like to think that I'm the best builder in town. and I'm not even close. There's like 15 or 20 builders that are all building to the same level that I am, and they're competitors. They're also really, frankly, good guys and girls. And so it's kind of, in some respects, it's a hard town to be a builder because there's so many good builders. And the other side, it's really cool because if you lose a job, half the time you're happy for that builder. He's probably one of your friends, and you know that house is probably going to get built well. Now, every town has some builders that aren't quite as good, aren't quite as with it, but I feel like our town has a lot of good builders and a lot of good architects that people are willing to pay a little bit more to get a well-designed and well-built house.
Yeah, and really good barbecue.
And really good barbecue.
Definitely have really good barbecue. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling here. So we have Natalie. Natalie, thanks for joining. Thanks for the shout out, Jenny. Okay, so here's the recap of the coffee talk you mentioned. So she put it in the article. There you go, folks. So if you want to find that and you don't see these comments, it is up there. Oh, man. You know this guy?
Who's this?
Mark Bare Naked Willie.
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Yeah, on BS Friday show that we do with Mark, it's Mark Bare Naked Willie. All right?
That's not a visual I'm interested in pursuing any further, Mark.
Oh, I know it.
I'm assuming he's referencing his T-studs. I'll go grab one so you know.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. We're going to show T-stud. Brian Iverson, if you're out in that audience, let's hear from you, man. I want to talk to you. I love it. Where'd he go?
All right, this is the old version of the T-stud because I got this a long time ago. But there's some new news that we haven't announced. I have a T-stud house with some bare naked studs, not these, bare naked studs like this.
Here, why don't you sit
except a slightly different formulation that we're starting to frame next week. So we got some T-stud framing videos coming up very shortly. It's basically a 2x6 wall framing material. Now they've oriented this stud so it's at a 90 degree. It's perpendicular from this stud. But this is a 2x3 and a 2x3 that's joined by hardwood dowels that are polyurethane glued in place, so that now in my 5.5-inch wall cavity, I can actually insulate this space right here with insulation so that I break that thermal bridge. And if I don't want to use exterior insulation, then I can have this product, which actually is rated to, I think, R19.
Yeah.
Or around there.
And it's so light. You'd think this was heavy, but they're not.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
That next week, I have 500 of them on a job 3 blocks from here.
Right. All right. Terry Yagi, T-Stud rocks. Thanks, Terry. So let's talk about this stuff, right? Like T-Stud, the partnerships. How important is that, with everything that you do, having these partners out there? And do you want to talk about some of these partners?
Yeah, I have a lot of partners, Dave, to be honest. When I started on YouTube in 2008, I'll give you my 1-minute version of or 3-minute version of my story. We talked about this earlier. I started YouTube just as a way to promote my business and help people know that I was a smart builder that was honest and would build them a good house. It's turned into its own thing. And what's exciting to me about having a big YouTube audience is not the ego or even the money, although those both have been great. I sure appreciate YouTube paying me. But it's given me a platform to speak to a greater amount of North American builders, remodelers, architects, and people who are going to build, and make a case for why we should build a better house, why we should use products, methods, materials, architects, builders who get it and are interested in building more healthy, more durable, more comfortable houses. And so it's allowed me to have a voice in the industry that's much, much bigger than just a dorky builder in Texas who builds 7 or 8 projects a year. And so it's been a huge blessing for me to have this whole other business besides just my home building company. But when it comes to partners, there's a lot of manufacturers like these T-Stud guys that I've said, hey, this is a really cool product. I'm interested in this. Will you guys help support me by helping pay my way to fly out and see you, or pay my infrastructure costs? I now have a team of 9 people that are helping me shoot and produce and do all the back end on the Build Show and Build Show Network. So it's a costly thing, but we've reached out to a bunch of partners over the year. People like Rockwool. There's my Rockwool insulation in the ceiling right above your head there, Dave. People like T-Stud and many others, Huber Zip System. And now we talk about their products on a regular basis, but we're not an editorial, nor are we advertorial. We're products that I think meet my standards, and companies that are like-minded to us, that are interested in educating and not just shooting a commercial.
Yeah.
And that's really what my build show is. And some videos are sponsored, and most videos are not sponsored.
Perfect. That's a great answer. And and I think it's so important. We have the kind of the same philosophy on this show, whether who we work with. It's by invite only. This is not, pay to play by any stretch of the imagination. And that's what's great about it, because we want people to hear the real stories.
Totally.
We want people to get the truth in everything that we do.
Yep.
And I think that's what's so great about it. All right, let's take another question. All right, Jennifer wrote, Matt, Housing Innovation Alliance often talks about collaborate to innovate. What are your thoughts on how we can work together and encourage homeowners and builders alike to build to a higher code? Now, this is an interesting comment, because on our BS Friday show that we do, we talk about this all the time. And what's really interesting about Mark, Willie, and I is we're bringing our two worlds together on that particular show, where he's bringing that whole passive house knowledge, building science, and we're looking at the offsite community, because my background was from the offsite world, modular and volumetric and panelized. So this is an interesting question. So how do we encourage homeowners and builders to build to a higher code? Because we're trying to educate.
Yeah. When I started in this business, all of that collaboration happened at my local home builders association. And at that time, I met a group of builders that were 15 or 20 years older than me. Yeah. That I communicated with regularly, I became friends with. Most of them are still in my life on a regular basis today, even 15 years later. Right. One of them even works with me. He's my VP of construction. Today, that's transitioned a little bit. And one interesting thing about social media, of which you're quite adept at, Dave, is just like a lot of these people that are commenting. Yeah. And someone comments and you go, oh, they're blah, blah, blah. They do this, this, and this. You have a relationship with them. Maybe you've never even met them. You have no idea what they look like. If they walked up to you in a bar, you'd be like, hi, nice to meet you. Yeah. But yet you've had communication, you've had a relationship with them. That's happening a ton on Instagram right now among builders. When I post something on Instagram, I get anywhere from 10 to 100 comments about the question, the product, the method, the material, the why, the what, what's the alternative. And there's this back and forth, not just with me, but among the people that are commenting. And you'll see a comment say, hey, Matt, why did you do this? I'm surprised you didn't do this instead. Right. And 4 people will jump in and go, well, he actually did it like this, but I am curious why he didn't do this, this, or this. It's amazing the community out there that's happening on social media. And for me, I'm probably most involved with Instagram. YouTube's kind of hard to comment. You get a little buried in the troll comments. But Instagram in particular is an amazing place. And I've seen a lot of builders really rise up in their knowledge and then show that off on their jobs. Hey, guys, check this out. I learned about this method for basement waterproofing. Steve Basic showed X, Y, and Z. I'm doing the job. I just wanted to say a big shout out. Thanks to Steve for his knowledge. How cool is that?
It is cool.
That's amazing. I mean, when I was a kid, the only way you could watch a builder or learn about building was tuning into PBS on Saturday morning from 8:30 to 9. Maybe as I got older, I could tape it on the VCR. But it's amazing today that there's so much knowledge out there. And there's so many people that are willing to share that knowledge too. It's not kind of held back as your trade secret. Right. But people are willing to put it out there and share those things.
Well, I mean, we have so far to go in this industry. I always say, I mean, especially in the offsite world where we're 5% of the market, right? Yeah. There's only one way to go. If somebody had the secret sauce, we'd all be there. Yeah. And, there'd be an Amazon of the building world,
Not the case.
Not the case. But the collaboration that happens online in these communities, even with the Housing Innovation Alliance, honestly, like there's so much behind the scenes action and networking and business that starts happening. Yep. And the knowledge sharing, and the consumers who are watching then get to actually ask the experts their questions. Totally. And they get an opinion, so when they're dealing with whoever they're dealing with in their world, it's just so much fun to be able to share that and run with it. And I 100%. think that's really powerful. Really powerful. 100%. All right, let's go to another comment here. Greg Brown. All right, Greg from YouTube. Matt, thanks for your show and building science information. I teach building trades in Wisconsin, and you provide great examples of how to be a great builder and provide a quality, well-built home.
That's really cool, Greg. That makes my day, man.
Yeah, that is super cool. That is super cool. And then, all right, let's go one more here. All right, Timothy James Seams. Matt and Dave, thanks for doing this today.
Hey, Tim. How's it going, man?
It's always good to see Tim from Nishiha. Good to see you, buddy. All right, so Matt, what do you think? I got a couple questions here. Let's make sure we didn't miss anything.
Okay.
And then I think we'll do kind of just a quick walkthrough. Maybe you can show that mechanical system you were talking about.
I'll show you my attic and my mechanicals up there.
Yeah, we got Betsy's doing a great job waiting here for us. And hopefully I'll get the mics right. So if you can't hear us, just tell us real quick. And then Betsy, you can watch the comments in there, or I'll look at it and while Matt's explaining what we're doing. So I do think we hit just about everything that we need to hit. Let me ask you this before we get up and go. From your perspective on where you sit today, just like we were talking the other day when we were on the show, the value that you give to the consumers, and I really think that this is really important to know, how much value do you get from the audience? That's what we don't talk about, a lot. Like what comes back, and then
so much. I've got a lot of loyal friends out there, and as I mentioned earlier, I mainly interact with them on Instagram more than YouTube comments per se.
Right.
But there's so many people that have written me, emailed me, commented. I do get overwhelmed. So if you're watching this and I haven't responded to you, I apologize. Yeah. But that's kind of the deal these days when I get 1,000 comments a day.
Yeah, it is hard.
But there's so many people that just like the Wisconsin building professor Greg said, I get so much positive reinforcement by folks that say, hey, I was building this way and I've totally changed my thinking based on watching what you've been doing.
Right.
That's huge for me. And to think that I'm having an impact on how houses are getting built across America and how individual builders are thinking about construction, that's such a privilege, Dave. I can't tell you how happy that makes me.
Yeah, it is a privilege, and it's an unexpected privilege, right?
It
it's not what you went into this to do.
No, not at all.
And I think that's what the fun about it is, and using the video. And I encourage everybody out there, if you're a builder or anything, it's such a way to build a unique audience, fan base with people that want to build with you, because we're really destination business as a builder. Yeah. People only want you when they want you, when they're looking to build a home, typically.
That's right.
So it's a very powerful tool. All right, what do you say?
Should we walk? You ready?
All right, let's see if we can get this right.
Stuff?
Yeah, so we're going to bring this back.
To use out of your body. It's radiating off your body and coming down to the slab. Everything all right?
I had to turn the sound back on. So repeat what you just said. It, for whatever reason, the mic shut off.
All right, no problem. So if you missed it, I was saying that a slab foundation, which is very, very common throughout the whole South, works to your benefit in the summertime in some respects, because it is a little bit cooler than other portions of your house, although your edge of your slab gets pretty hot. But in the wintertime, it's a giant amount of heat loss. And in fact, a good portion, up to like 30 or 40% of your heating needs in the wintertime are because your slab is uninsulated. But in the past, when I've insulated slabs, I did it on the perimeter. It's tricky to do because of termite issues. So Steve has a genius idea that I'm assuming he came up with, but I've only seen him do it before. And now Jake Bruton's done it a couple times, another builder friend of mine, We're going to lay 4x8 sheets of insulation on top of my slab. I'm going to use 1.5 inch thick halo insulation, which is a carbon impregnated. Is that right? Or is it, no, pardon me, graphite impregnated EPS foam, so it won't waver in its R value over time. And then on top of that, I'm going to lay 2 layers of 3/4 inch Advantech that are glued and screwed to each other and not glued or screwed to the floor below. So basically, I'll have a floating subfloor on top of my insulation. I'm really excited about this detail, and that's why I've got a lip at the front and the back door. That's a 3-inch lip, because on top of my slab, your feet will actually be 3 inches taller than where you are now once I get that in place next month. Once I get my doors in place and windows in place, I'll be able to do that. And then the other benefit of that is I can put my glue or nail down hardwood floors right on top of that, and I won't have any concrete attachment issues with that. And my floor now will be much, much warmer. And that's one of the ways that I was able to change this to a passive house.
Yeah. And Steve Basic, just so you know, it is out of the Northeast in Massachusetts. So that is one thing we understand is cold weather and insulation, right? He's the expert. I thought for a minute I was going to have to go grab a red pen.
Big red, if he calls it.
But Big Red, he has it. So, all right, I grabbed my phone so we can still work through comments as we're going here, which will be a lot of fun.
Let's work our way upstairs. And downstairs, this is my family room. Where we were sitting before is my kind of dining room and kitchen area. Watch your step there. My master is back here. My master bedroom is like 20% bigger than my current master. It's gonna feel like a palace. And now my current house is a ranch style single story. Now I've got a 2-story house. And one of the big things that nets me is this space at the top of the stairs, which is an upstairs family room. I've got my daughter's bedroom over here, hall bath, and 2 boys' bedrooms. But what I really want to show you is up here. Holly, do you want to sit in the camera?
Why don't I take it?
Okay, I'll let you do that.
Yeah. All right, so. All right.
This is my favorite room in the house, probably. You got a light to see what's going on up here?
Yeah, we're good.
Ooh,
Go ahead. Got the LVL. All right. Show us around.
What's happening up here, Dave, is this is my conditioned attic space.
Yep.
I used LVL rafters as well. These are LVL 2x8s. And I've got a ridge beam here, but I have eliminated all the junk that you would normally have in the way, all of his additional framing members that would bring load down by using these LVL rafters. And then my ceiling joists are LVLs. They're tied together with some Spax power lags, basically a lag screw. So these are basically a giant truss, but it gives me this massive open space.
Yeah, I'll pan up and show everybody.
Which means that I added a gable window, and now my conditioned attic is pretty nice space.
Yeah, it really is.
And then they designed my stuff. We got the attic over there. They designed my mechanical system. I've got a Mitsubishi 1 1/4 ton system up here. I have a very low load house, and I've got a ton of insulation. If you were going to try and find something else that would be that small, it would be really hard. But Mitsubishi makes these units that are variable refrigerant flow, and they're what they call a low static pressure ducted unit, which means that this little unit here, which really is about the same size as a couple pizza boxes stacked up, is only going to blow about 400 or 500 CFM, not very much compared to a standard high flow system. And then off of that is what they call a pair of pants plenum. So the air comes off this way and comes like this, and then it's going off here to my boys' bedrooms in the family room, here to another bedroom, and there to my daughter's bedroom. This is the return side of the system. And then because I'm in the South, I highly recommend you have separate dehumidification. So I've got my ultra air down here. It's pulling a return off the return side, and then it's dumping into my duct side. You could also duct this separate, which is what I actually do more often than not. I do like to do that separate, but I did integrate here. And then I just published a video on this. I was super excited to put this in my house. I've seen this in several passive houses. This is basically the world's best energy recovery ventilator. This is an ERV, which when it's bringing fresh air in, this duct right here is insulated, is bringing air in up here. And that north gable is kind of the cool side of the house. So we're bringing fresh air in there. And then it's going to dump it into this machine right here, which is going to let the air pass next to each other without actually touching each other. It's going to exchange the moisture and the heat from the ingoing and the outgoing stream. And then it's going to exhaust that air.
At the top. Yep.
So basically, this is a fully balanced system. It's going to run continuously at about 180 CFM, and it'll constantly be pulling a little bit of air in, pushing a little bit of air out. And the other thing I love about this system that I didn't think about originally was I've eliminated all those penetrations on my house. You know, my house is 4 bath plus a powder room. No, pardon me, 3 bath plus a powder room. So I normally would have all those bath fans going out, all these exhaust ports. Now I have 2. I have 1 coming in and 1 going out. Now I do have kitchen ventilation too as well. I'll have a separate exhaust fan from Fantech to run my kitchen ventilation. And then I'll also have a makeup air for that kitchen ventilation. But basically that means I've got 4 penetrations for my house for my air, and that's it.
I love this. This is kind of the Halloween Matt Reisinger right now. Yeah, it's working. It's working.
Right. If I did